Alright, so, Gulliver's Travels. Oh boy, what can I say about this movie? Well, for starters, I didn't really enjoy this movie at all. I mean, in fact, the movie wasn't really that enjoyable. It was god-awful, and it was a giant middle finger to, people who loved the original books, people who loved the original books, that really enjoyed the moments. But then when this movie came in, it was just nothing but just a pointless film that should have never been made. And here's why. Because of the writing. I mean, the writing is most likely the problem. I mean, I don't know why Fox decided to butcher the writing and how they have less faith in the source material of the original books. I mean, seriously, there are other good films about Gulliver's Travels better than this movie, because in other words, it's just a parody and just pretty bad. I mean, the way about how they cram Star Wars, pop culture references, mainly Star Wars, and all that is pretty meh. And you can tell about how they lost faith into the books, and they cram it into the author's work into this adaptation. I mean, I've seen worse book adaptations that were worse than this. The Percy Jackson movies being the main example, and they show perfect to never mess with the author's work, to never mess with the adaptation. And they changed a lot of things from the movie that was a giant middle finger to the fans of the books. Mainly with the main villain, Ares. Now, you guys remember Ares, right? God of War? Now Ares was the main villain in the Percy Jackson book, in The Lightning Thief, the first book. But in the movie, it was actually Luke. I mean, Luke never really fought Percy in the book, but in the movie he does, and that ruined about the big climax that the book did. And in the movie that basically ruined it. And it looks like that the studio never read one single book about the series and about how it makes it so good. The film is also having a hard time trying to aim to its audience. Like, is it made for kids or is it made for adults? It's too juvenile for adults, and it's adult humory for kids. But yeah, in other words, the writing in this is pretty bad, cramming too much jokes, overuse of pop culture jokes and references, childish humor, and bad acting. With the bad acting mainly goes to Emily Blunt, and she did say herself that she did not really enjoy the movie, and she didn't really want to be in this movie. She didn't really want to be in this movie at all, but she signed a contract anyways. But luckily, after when this movie was released, this did not affect her career at all. But this could have ruined her career. I mean, yeah, Emily Blunt is a really great actress, but in here she's pretty bad. And Jason Segel is also pretty good, but in here he's also pretty bad. The Catherine Tate, she's pretty good. I've seen her in Doctor Who, but she's pretty bad in here. And other actors like that Scottish actor, I can't remember his name now, but he's a pretty good actor from what I've seen, but he is pretty bad in this movie and was just totally wasted. There are also some visuals that were pretty bad. There are some visuals that are pretty good, but most of them are pretty bad. Mainly with the CGI arms and some of the CGI legs. And not only that, also with the CGI robot. The CGI robot is pretty horrible and looks like a rejected design of Pacific Rim. And it looks like that it was made for an unfinished video game. In other words, this movie is a perfect example to never to interfere with the author's work, but also it's also a perfect example to never rip off Shrek, because it mainly rips off some things, mainly Shrek, but with Gulliver's Travels. But yeah, it's a pretty bad movie and is not that funny. It's terrible, and this is terrible with bad writing, bad humor, bad acting, etc. Jack Black is a really great actor, and I've seen his films. I've seen all of his films like Kung Fu Panda, but in here, he's pretty bad. He's not that funny as he was in some of his other films like School Rocks or Kung Fu Panda. But yeah, it is pretty bad to say the least, and yeah, I wouldn't recommend you to watch this movie and all that. The one thing I could really fix is that make it more better, make it more faithful to the books, and don't add use over pop culture references, and don't make it more modernized. Or if you're trying to make it more modernized, try to execute it very well. That of course, have faith in the authors and the author's work. So make sure that it's sticking true to the source material from the books and all that. That's what I would fix. I will fix that. And try to make the acting a bit more better and give the actors their best. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend you to watch this movie at all. And this movie, meh. Not really good. I want to forget about this movie eventually.